sharing with you how I sewed this bunny here using a Minky and Friends Australia pattern. It was my first time making any stuffed toy, and you can tell as you're watching the video I made quite a few mistakes. So let's just roll the bloopers. Uh-oh, we're losing it. It's the wrong way around. Is that what it's meant to look like? I don't know what I'm doing. Does that even count as a circle?
Decapitated.
Yeah, decapitated. How am I meant to do this? I don't get it. Spherical? Kind of looks creepy. Considering I've made so many mistakes already, isn't she so cute? Hi crafty people, and welcome back to My Mum Makes. Today I'm sharing with you how I made this beautiful bunny right here, and my family have decided to call her Lavender. And Lavender has been fought over for the past 2 weeks since I made her. My kids are really enjoying having this new stuffed animal in our collection. She's very soft and sweet and cuddly, and she's just a beautiful, beautiful bunny. I made her using the Minky and Friends Australia pattern. I was gifted a pattern kit from them, and I am really happy with how it turned out. I was a little intimidated at first because I had never made a stuffed animal before, and I did make a few mistakes along the way, but in the end it was a really fun project. I really enjoyed it, and I am so proud of myself because I think it actually looks really good, if I do say so myself. If this is your first time on my channel, then welcome. My name is Marie, and I am a mum to 4 kids ranging in ages from 6 years old down to 2 years old. I'm really excited to be sharing this tutorial with you today so that you can get some helpful tips so that you can make a bunny like this, or just helpful tips for you to make a different stuffed toy as well. If you are interested in purchasing one of the Minky and Friends patterns, then use my code mymum.marie to get 20% off site-wide. So with all of that being said, let's get making.
My mum makes a bunny toy.
The first part of making this bunny is, of course, getting our pattern pieces ready. And in order to do this, the first thing that we needed to do was to trace out each of our pattern pieces onto the fabric. The pattern specifically says that the line you trace out around each of the pattern pieces is going to be your stitch line, so you need to add seam allowance around the outside of that. So the first step I did was to trace out all my pattern pieces onto the fabric. Unfortunately, I didn't realize that the bunny ears were upside down. That was the first mistake, but not the only mistake I made in this process. So I traced around the pattern pieces, and then I added seam allowance and then cut them out, and then I realized that I hadn't put the interfacing on, so I had to go back and basically do it all again, and I had to iron on the interfacing to then be able to trace out the pattern pieces onto the interfacing again and cut them out for a second time. Then I needed to sew in my tailor's tacking, which are little marks to show where each of the facial features and the foot features on the body part were going to go. So you have to sew your stitches through both layers of fabric to mark where each of those little things are going to be added later. So now I'm at the point where I have everything ready to go. I've traced my markings back onto the front of the interfacing. I've pinned everything together. It's all ready to go, but considering I've made so many mistakes already, I'm feeling a little tentative, a little bit nervous about the process of making this. I have never made a stuffed animal before. I think it's pretty obvious because I'm already making mistakes. I've corrected all my mistakes now, and we're back on track now to actually start stitching. The instructions say that I need to change my stitch length to a 2.0 stitch, which means that the stitches are closer together, and I imagine that's so that the stuffing doesn't come out. If you've got larger stitches, that makes bigger holes. So I'm going to set my machine to a 2.0 length stitch, and we're going to start stitching the head together. I found I really had to get my head in there so that I could really see where the line was there. I was trying to be very specific about following that line and making it really precise. You have to take special care at the top of the head to match up the seams really well so that all 4 seams meet together at the top of the head nice and neatly. Once the head has been sewn on all 4 seams, you can clip around the curves, and I just use my pinking shears when I'm doing this because otherwise it takes way too long, and pinking shears just make this job a whole lot easier. And then you can turn the head right side out and it looks like this. Then I made the ears. You just have to sew them right sides together and then clip the notches again and turn them out. And at that point, this is what you've got. You've got the head looking like this, all 3-dimensional like this, and our 2 little bunny ears once they're turned out the right way. So now that I've done this part, I'm actually feeling a bit better. I feel like, you know, I can kind of see it starting to literally take shape, I guess, and also I can see where we're heading. So I'm not feeling quite as intimidated as I was about 20 minutes ago. The next step is we're going to start sewing the body. To sew the body together, you first sew the very tiny little darts, which would be in the crotch seam sort of area, and then you sew around the leg seams but leaving open the feet areas. So I'm about to sew this part here, and what do I do with the darts? Do I lean them to one side or do I flatten them? I don't know. Guess I'll just flatten them and see how it goes. The bottom of the feet need a separate piece added to it, a foot pad, so that it can make it 3D. So once it's at that point, it looks like this, and then we're going to be adding the foot pads onto the bottom here. Now at this point it says to put your tacking stitches along here to hold the foot pad in place, and every part of me wants to skip that because I hate doing tacking stitches, but it even says here, don't skip the tacking stitches. I'll do the tacking stitches and then I'll sew the foot pads in place. I very reluctantly added the tacking stitches around the foot pads, and then I was able to sew them down on my sewing machine, and boy did I realize that I needed those tacking stitches because it was complicated. It's fiddly, it barely turned out to be a circle in the end, so okay, I admit it. I needed the tacking stitches, okay? Alright, so now we're at the point where we've got the foot thingy-me-bobbers on the bottoms like that, and it looks like this, and there's strings going everywhere from the tacking stitches and the tailor's markings, and there's stuff going on. So we're going to cut around the whole thing and then turn it in the right way and hope that the feet look a little bit more circular when they're out the right way. This is what the body part looks like now that it's turned out the right way, and this was the head we made before, and we've also got the ears. So the last part we have to make the arms, and we're going to make them in basically the same way as we made the ears, just sewing around the outside, leaving a gap to turn them out the right way again, and then clipping around the notches before we do turn it out the right way. So I flipped the arm pieces out the right way and used my chopstick to push out all the edges, and with those done, each of the pieces of the bunny is all completed, and I just need to stuff them and attach them to each other. So I would say that the preparation of the pieces was definitely the most time consuming, the thing that I found I struggled with a bit there. I also struggled with the foot pads here a little bit, but the instructions were very clear. It's been really easy to follow so far, and even though this is the first time I'm making it, I feel like it wasn't too bad. So for tonight I'm going to leave it at this point, and I'll come back tomorrow and I'll show you how I stuff each of the pieces and attach them to each other. Putting the stuffing in this rabbit was really fun. Being able to really jam it in there with the chopstick and seeing the shape form is very satisfying to actually be able to see your creation turning into a 3D object. The instructions specifically say to pack it very firmly, so I did do that. I put quite a lot of stuffing, especially in the body. There is a bit of discrepancy with the head being a little bit softer than the body, so I don't know if I overfilled the body or underfilled the head, but I guess that's something for me to work on for next time, trying to get them a bit more even. Then it was time for me to attach the head to the body, so I had to pin it onto each other, which I found tricky to hold them in place while trying to pin it. I need like 6 hands to do this part. I don't know how you meant to do this. Yeah. How do I do this?
Yes.
Is that what it's meant to look like?
Owie, she sang owie.
And then I did a ladder stitch to hold it together. It is slightly crooked, but it's not too bad. I think you can't really tell unless you're looking at it closely like I am. So next I'm working on the arms for the bunny. I just need to finish closing over the hole on this one, and then I'll be able to sew them both in place. But I feel like it's going to be hard to sew in place because I don't know how you quite get up and under there to sew the arm on, but I guess we'll give it a try and see how we go. So we've still got the arms to sew on and then the ears. I sewed the arm to the body using a ladder stitch, and I did find it quite difficult to be able to hold the arm in place but also get the stitches up underneath the arm so that they were hidden. Next, I attached the ears to the top of the head following the tailor's markings on the top, which showed how to curve the ear, and I sewed that on again with a ladder stitch going along the front of the ear and the back of the ear as well. Sewn both of the ears on now, and the last part of the actual bunny is to sew the facial features on. So I've got my embroidery floss here, and we're going to make the eyes and the nose. To do the facial features, you need to use a satin stitch on the eyes and a back stitch for the nose. And the thing I found the most difficult was knowing what to do about the knot in your thread. So I just had the knot hidden within the eye and then did the satin stitches over the top of the knot. I don't know if that's what you're meant to do, and it has left a little bump. That's what I tried. I did my best, and I think it looks pretty cute with the facial features all done now. I've done the embroidery stitches here to do the eyes and nose, and now the whole bunny is done, ready for you to have a little cuddle. And then I'll need to work on the dress and the little bow next, if I ever get it back.
No, you don't.
I cut out all the pattern pieces to make the dress and the bow, and I cut them out of the lining and of the main fabric. And just like with the pattern pieces for the bunny, when you're tracing around it, that is the stitch mark, and you have to add in seam allowance. Then I sewed the dress front to its lining and the dress back to its lining. The first time I did it, the front was facing the wrong way, but I unpicked it and did it again. So I've turned them out the right way and ironed them flat, and I'm also at the same time ironing out the strap pieces just while the iron is hot so that I can get them done before I then head back to top stitch around the main part of the dress. Just a little reminder, if you're enjoying this video while you're watching it, don't forget to press that like button down below because it does help me out for YouTube to know that people are enjoying my videos. And you can subscribe as well if you haven't done that already. So now we're going to cut to me putting the top stitching around the dress parts, and then I'll be adding the straps onto the dress. Once the dress has been top stitched, you sew the straps on the front of the dress, and I've sewn 2 little blue buttons on as well. And then I have pinned on the back straps where they go on the back. So next we're going to sew these straps on the back and then join the front and back of the dress together at the side seams. I finished the cute little dress. It looks really good, and I think I've worked out that you're actually meant to put it on like stepping into it, because going over the big old head wasn't working very well for me. So hopefully this works better. So now that the dress is done, the last thing I'm going to do is to make that bow. So let's just see if this works. Oh, that was so much easier. So there's the dress. Cute. All right, let's make the bow. To sew the bow, you sew a rectangle shape of fabric with all the seams on the inside, and then you fold it into a concertina shape and hand sew those concertina folds in place. Then you have a little center of your bow, which you wrap around the center of your concertina section of the bow and sew that in place as well, while also attaching the hair elastic at the same time. Once that has all been securely sewn, you can then place it on the bunny's ear, and that's the end of the process of making this bunny. So there you have it. I hope that you enjoyed watching as I created this beautiful bunny right here, and that this was a helpful and informative video for you. Hopefully you've learned from some of my mistakes so that you don't have to make them too, and then you'll successfully have a beautiful bunny for your family too. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, don't forget to press like on this video and subscribe so that YouTube knows to send more of my content your way. If you're interested to see what I'm up to during the week, you can follow me over on Instagram, so I'll leave the link in the description box of this video, and I'll also leave the links to the pattern that I used, as well as the Minky and Friends Australia Instagram page if you want to follow along on their Instagram page to see some of the future patterns that they're coming out with. And if you do want to buy one of the Minky and Friends patterns, don't forget to use my code mymummakes2023, which will give you 20% off site-wide on their Etsy store. So thank you for joining me and watching this tutorial, and until next time, go get creative, and I'll see you later.